So building on what Laurent and Deb shared, I want to talk about how Maplesoft is using AI to reimagine learning and assessment in math education. Now, before we get into what we're doing, I want to take a step back and look at the bigger picture to really understand the impact AI is having on math education. And to do that, we need to look at it from three perspectives: the student, the instructor, and the institution. Because only when we can see how each of them is experiencing AI can we really start to see what a solution might look like. Let's start with the student perspective, and let's explore the question of how students are using AI in the first place. According to a recent Nature article, 86% of university students now use AI regularly in their studies. This is the reality. AI is everywhere. It's mainstream. It's part of how students work and learn. Before ChatGPT, it was tools like PhotoMath and Chegg, anything that could deliver answers and step-by-step solutions quickly. Now, AI hasn't changed the fact that students are getting answers, but in the next slide, I'll argue it's doing something deeper. It's changing how students think about getting help altogether. Now, what might be surprising to many is that when students are asked how they use AI, getting answers, AKA cheating, isn't front and center. And if you have doubts, I encourage you to read the article, AI to the Rescue, published by the Chronicle of Higher Education. It describes how many students use AI as a kind of companion, a way to get unstuck, to have something to start with when they're lost. They're using AI to support their learning, not to replace it. And this is completely in line with what we hear from our co-op students. Many of them say that it's not about taking shortcuts. It's about finding support when they can't get it anywhere else, when office hours don't fit, or when they feel embarrassed to ask for help, or if they perceive that they'll be bothering their professor. AI has become that thing that's always there. They're not avoiding the work, they're just trying to help themselves to keep going. The challenge here is that AI, well, it can often sound like it's teaching, but it isn't. Reading through an AI explanation can feel like learning, but it's passive. It's like watching someone else work out and thinking you're getting stronger. And worse, AI can be wrong and confidently wrong. For example, I asked Google if x plus y was a polynomial, and the AI overview said no, despite defining it correctly. And that's the danger when a tool sounds authoritative. Students don't always stop to question it. Kind of goes back to Deb's earlier talk. How do we get students to start questioning what they're seeing? And I think that's why insights into the questions that students are asking when they turn to AI matters more than ever. So while students are using AI to help them learn, from an instructor perspective, it looks very different. It's not just changing how students learn, it's changing what instructors can see. Students, as I mentioned before, are using AI as a learning companion. And whether we like it or not, we need to accept that. But from an instructor's perspective, it's deeply unsettling. You can't tell what students actually understand anymore. Assignments used to be windows into their thinking. Now they often just reflect what technology can produce. You lose your ability to step in early because you don't see where your students are struggling. And by the time the midterm comes around and the problem shows up, it's often too late. In short, students' use of AI means that your teaching today feels like seeing through a veil. And when this lack of visibility, it scales up. It's no longer just a classroom problem. I'll argue it's an institutional one. Because when universities can't see how students are learning, it strikes at the very heart of what they exist to do, to promote learning, inquiry, and the advancement of knowledge. At the institutional level, the response to AI is deeply tied to identity. Universities are built on the idea that learning must be authentic, that understanding has to come from students' own effort and reflection. So suddenly, when AI shows up in the classroom, it feels like a direct threat to that mission. It challenges what universities stand for and what they've always tried to protect. And when universities feel their mission is under threat, the natural response is to reassert control. And we're seeing this across campuses. We're seeing a return to pen and paper exams. And I know it feels safer. It's like authenticity restored. But unfortunately, doing that doesn't address the real issue. Blocking AI doesn't stop students from using it. It just means we stop seeing how they're learning. And our focus has shifted from understanding what students know and how they're making sense of the material that we're teaching in the class to policing their behavior. And as a result, I believe we're losing sight of what education is really about, helping students learn, think, and grow. And when we lose sight of learning, we lose students. Many students that I talk to, they're eager and motivated to enter university, but they quickly realize they're underprepared, I should say, for the demands of university level mathematics. So they turn to AI to cope, not necessarily to cheat, but to just help them survive. And the heartbreaking part is that we only see their struggle when it's too late for us to do anything about it. And the result is devastating. In the US, almost 1 in 4 first-year students don't complete their program. And we're seeing similar trends worldwide. And when you look more closely at why, math just keeps coming up. Students consistently cite math as one of the main reasons that they withdraw from their program, that they withdraw from the institution. So if we truly want to help students succeed, it's imperative that we help them with math. So how do we, as instructors, as institutions, pivot? If math is where so many students struggle, how do we actually help them succeed? And I believe we need a new approach, one that doesn't hide AI or fear AI, but uses it as an ally to see where students are stuck and gives them the help they need and that they can actually trust. And in the next few slides, that's the shift that I want to explore. So we've been talking a lot about the problem, how AI has changed learning and how it's left instructors and institutions struggling to see what's really happening, what students really know. But what if we flip that? What if we use the same technology that's been obscuring learning to actually reveal it? Instead of trying to block AI, what if we used it to understand, to see where students are struggling, what steps they're taking, and where they need help? Because if visibility is the problem, then insight needs to be the solution. And at Maplesoft, our solution to the problem is simple: to make the invisible visible. And that's exactly what we're trying to do with the Math Success Platform. It's what it was designed to do. It brings together 3 key components: the Maple Calculator, the Analytics Hub, and our software tools, Maple and Maple Learn. It's a solution that supports every student learning mathematics, whether they're in STEM or in non-STEM. So let me walk you through how it works. Students start on their phone using the Maple Calculator app because honestly, they wouldn't have it any other way. Their phone is where they study, where they problem solve, where they learn. The Maple Calculator does everything tools like ChatGPT does. It gives answers, shows steps, solves word problems, but it's accurate and it's math they can trust. And since it's built by Maplesoft, it does a whole lot more. It includes things like check my work and try another, so students can reflect, practice, and improve. Now for students, the Maple Calculator is almost like having a personal tutor. It's always on, always accurate, and always ready to help them. And as students use the calculator, we collect anonymous data about how they're interacting with it, what they're solving, where they're getting stuck. And that data, that anonymous data, it flows into the Analytics Hub, where AI is used to analyze it, to identify patterns. Which concept is the class struggling with? Which question types are causing problems? And where is the learning breaking down? The analytics hub is where the magic happens. It turns the invisible into the visible. It gives instructors, TAs, and academic leaders real insight into how students are learning. And based on those insights, the Math Success Platform provides students with targeted resources, not just steps, more than steps, explanations and explorations that really help to build true understanding and critical thinking. So let's take a look at each component more closely. As I mentioned before, everything starts with the Maple calculator because this is the tool, I should say, that students use every day. And as you can see on the video over here, with the Maple calculator, students taking a picture, gives students answers. It shows students steps. And it even lets students try another, so they can keep practicing until it clicks. Then, with Check My Work, they can scan their entire word problem or their entire worked problem, and they get instant feedback that's reliable. It lets them know where they might have made a mistake. And it provides them with support to keep trying. Like ChatGPT, the Maple calculator is helpful and intuitive. But as I mentioned before, there's one key difference. It's accurate. It's math that they can trust. And as students use the calculator, as I mentioned before, anonymous data is flowing into the Analytics Hub. And this is where, again, AI turns the invisible into the visible. It analyzes patterns across the class. And as you can see over here from this screenshot of the Analytics Hub, it's used to be able to see which problems are causing friction. Where do students need more help? And that's the insight I was talking about earlier. Instructors and academics, leaders, I should say, get a clear, anonymized view of how students are engaging with their math and where they're struggling, and then can give them support right in time, just in time. And then those resources, the targeted resources, this is where everything comes full circle. Based on the insights from the Analytics Hub and instructor feedback when it's available, students receive targeted resources right inside of Maple Learn or Maple. And these just aren't hints. Like I mentioned before, they're interactive explanations that help students grasp why, not just the how. So as you see over here, if you'll notice, some of these are questions directly that students were using the calculator for. What we want to do is not try to give them random material, but really try to give them resources that tie to what they're learning, where they're struggling. And more importantly, these resources, they're not AI generated. They're created by our in-house team of content and math developers, guided by experienced educators. So the question I get is, does this actually work? And yes, we know it does, because we're not starting from zero. The numbers on the slide, well, they speak for themselves. Maple is used by 90% of technical institutions worldwide, and the Maple calculator has been downloaded over 4 million times. Across Maple Calculator and Maple Learn, we've logged more than 7 million learning activities, each one a moment where student engaged with math. And for more than 40 years, Maplesoft has been the place that people come to for math, whether they're learning it, teaching it, or doing it. And that trust doesn't happen overnight. It's built on years of experience, dedication, and a shared belief that math matters. Now I can almost hear the next question. Will students actually use it? And the answer is, they already are. We have 5 million downloads, a 4.5-star rating, and that's proof that students want this. Students want something that they can use on their phone that's built on trusted math, not a large language model trying to sound convincing. It's not about forcing them to adopt a new tool. It's about giving them a better version of what they're already reaching for. I often hear budgets are tight, and that's true. Every institution I talk to is being asked to do more with less. But what's the cost of doing nothing? One of our customers told us they lost roughly $4.6 million in tuition revenue in a single year when just 7% of their first-year students dropped out. And beyond the financial impact, that represents hundreds of students who started hopeful, determined to succeed, but didn't make it to year 2. So yes, budgets are tight, which is why it's more important than ever to invest in solutions that reflect how students are actually learning today, not how we think they should be learning, not how we were learning when we were students. Because if we ignore how students are really studying, how they're asking for help, how they're leveraging technology, we're not solving the problem. We're just spending around it. And I know from all my calls with institutions that nobody's ignoring this problem. In fact, universities are spending more than ever on student support. Tutoring centers, learning centers, there's extra office hours, there's more TAs, there's peer mentoring, there's learning labs. But the one thing I hear from all of them in all my calls is that students aren't showing up. They're turning to AI tools and quick answer apps instead. Again, not because they don't want to learn, because those tools, they perceive them to be more accessible, they're immediate and available to them on their own terms. So while we keep investing in traditional forms of support, students are actually finding help elsewhere. So this isn't a budget issue, it's an alignment issue. We're funding help that doesn't match how students actually seek help today. And until we don't fix that disconnect, we'll keep losing students and we'll keep losing the insight we need to help them. Now, I also get the question about whether the Math Success platform is meant to replace teachers. And the answer is it's not. Teachers are and will always be at the center of learning. This is about helping them, giving instructors the visibility they need to see where students are struggling and the tools to respond in ways that actually make a difference. And if the instructor doesn't have time to step in, which can be the case sometimes, it's about making sure students still have access to accurate, trustworthy support. So when they fall behind, they don't stay behind. That's the goal. It's not to replace teachers, but to make sure that every student has a clear path to success on their own terms. So I'll leave you with this. AI isn't going away, and it's not something that should be feared. It's an opportunity to see learning more clearly and to help students in ways that truly matters. This is a moment to rethink, not retreat.